Hi guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about memory. And I think I'm just going to focus on the normal aspects of memory and what it is and what that looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and broaden our topic and focus on psychogenic processes that are often indicative of trauma and dissociation. Last week we talked about post-traumatic stress disorder, and I pointed out a couple of things that a lot of you have asked me questions about. And then on Monday I did an impromptu video in my car that focused a little bit on the emotional and psychological process of feeling numb and kind of feeling overwhelmed. So let's just go ahead and jump in to today's topic, okay? So thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For those who are subscribed and for those who are new, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can stick around with us, continue to learn and to grow, and be a part of our validating community. The benefits, for you today in this video is that I'm going to be talking about memory, and I'm going to point out a couple of things that you may not know about memory. So this is a little bit of an introduction to psychological memory. So let's just go ahead and jump in. All right. So last week, like I said at the beginning of this video, I talked a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder and a lot about the psychological and emotional process of PTSD. And a lot of you brought up and maintained a conversation about over a couple of days, memory and the loss of memory and the loss of experience that you felt should have been encoded into your mind, right? Into your overall experience. But for some reason, it's escaped you. And so you're not exactly sure why it's escaped you. You just know that you've been mistreated, or you've been traumatized, or you've experienced something that's not the greatest thing to experience. And as a result of that, you are now trying to, recap those experiences and bring those experiences back into your reality, only to find out that you no longer remember anything, or you absolutely can't remember a certain chunk of your life, right? You can't remember the first 5 years of your life, or you can't remember the last 5 years of your childhood development, right? Or you can't remember a traumatic event or an experience that had a great impact on you. And a lot of that is the result of psychological and emotional pain. People who experience trauma, whether that's emotional, psychological, or physical, right, whatever that trauma may be, there's a possibility, there's a high chance, a major possibility that you could absolutely forget the event and almost have what's known as mind blindness, right? You kind of forget the experience in such a way that it is no longer an experience. It's like it never happened to begin with. So so that is memory. So let's just go over what it is. So the way that I like to describe memory is the process of maintaining information over time. It's the process of maintaining information over time. And that can be long-term or short-term, okay? When we're talking short-term memory, we're talking about a couple seconds before something gets encoded or written down, almost like on a hard drive, into your mind, okay? So if you think about a computer, the brain kind of works like a computer, and so does memory. And so when you're getting stimuli that's creating messages, and it's getting sent to the brain and to the body and the neurons and the dendrites and the atoms and all those different pieces in the brain, right? Your brain takes in that information, right? It kind of sucks in that information. Like right now, I'm getting information from my window because I'm hearing sounds. I'm looking at traffic, right? I'm getting messages from the lighting in my room because I'm aware that there's lighting all around me, right? I'm getting sensory messages that's coming in because I'm a little chilly and I have a little bit of chills right now because I don't have the heat up, right? So all those messages that you are actually bringing in, that your brain is processing and bringing into your body and into your mind, is being encoded onto your brain, almost like it's being taken in on a hard drive. And so memory does that, right? The process of memory, the process of maintaining information over time, is the experience of having something encoded, right? It has to be encoded in order for it to stay for a long period of time. And that's when we go into long-term memory, right? Short-term memory is a few seconds, like recalling a building that you saw a couple minutes ago, or driving past an office and you see a phone number and you take it real quick. You take like a snapshot and you remember those last 4 digits of the phone number, right? Or, you know, you're driving down the street and you see a picture of something, and, you know, you drive down the road and you're still kind of picturing it in your mind, but later that night you absolutely don't know what you were thinking about. That is short-term memory. It lasts for a little bit of time. And then long-term memory is the ability to hold something almost indefinitely, right? And it's kind of variable, right? Because you don't know what you're going to be able to remember and how long you're going to be able to remember it for, but that information has come into your brain, and it has come into your sensory system, and it has encoded that information. It has written that information down on the hard drive of your mind. All right. Now, there are 3 kinds of memory. The first kind of memory is visual. Visual memory is when you look at something. Remember I said you see a billboard or a picture and you picture it a couple minutes down the road, and maybe later you can go back and say, oh my God, I saw the silliest thing today, right? That's visual memory. All right. The next is what's called acoustic memory, and that's sound, right? That's your brain bringing in sound and encoding sound onto your brain. That's why sometimes you can hear a song and you walk away and it's still playing over in your head. Your brain has encoded that acoustic process or experience onto your mind like a hard drive. Okay. And last is semantic memory, and that's meaning, right? It's memorizing and being able to encode the meaning of something. Semantic memory, being able to encode and process and cause to stay with you for a long period of time an experience that has been meaningful to you. And that might be a spiritual experience, right? It could be going to church and really feeling wonderful about it, right? So I want you to keep those 3 things in mind, because they all have an impact on who we are when we have been traumatized, right? When you're dealing with trauma, then you're dealing with acoustic memory, right? You're dealing with, visual memory, right? You may see something that's traumatizing. You may hear something, right? You may hear someone crying, or maybe the car crash was so loud that you could still hear it while you're trying to sleep and while you're trying to rest. Semantic memory, right? You're kind of remembering the meaning of the experience to you. So these 3 areas of memory really do have an impact on our experience of trauma. So the way that I want you to think about memory and the brain is information that is being brought in from your experience. It's systematic, like a computer. It has a way of catching the information. Your brain has a way of catching the information, making it short-term or long-term, encoding that on your brain, and then your experience is created out of that. And that's why when you have had a traumatic experience, it's really difficult to push that experience back and go away and make it go away, because you have this experience, this sensory experience, and this systematic processing that has been encoded onto your brain, and it's really hard to move that out of the way. It's encoded, right? It's kind of built into who you are. It's your experience. And that's why getting rid of traumatic memories and flashbacks can be really difficult. It requires treatment. Now, there are 3 kinds of memory I want to go over before we wrap up this video. And the first is what's known as procedural memory. Procedural memory, okay? And procedural memory is basically how to do things, right? So remembering how to drive, remembering how to ride a bike, remembering how to type a letter up, right? Procedural memory is how to do something. The next is semantic memory. And semantic memory is the process of knowing that something is. So knowing that Abraham Lincoln was the president, knowing that there's about 9 billion people on planet Earth, right? So semantic memory is knowing that something is. And the last kind of memory that there is episodic memory. And this is the part of our memory that really gets complicated in traumatic experiences. Episodic memory is the process by which we remember episodes and events that have happened to us. So a traumatic event, it's flashing away in your brain, right? It's episodic. And I don't know if I can use this analogy because it just popped into my mind, but I think it's going to make sense. It's kind of like those flip books, right? And you do this with your flip book. This is kind of how your episodic memory will go sometimes, right? It'll do this. Okay. And you're seeing all these different experiences that are, pleasant and sometimes not so pleasant. In a traumatic situation or in a situation involving an individual who has been traumatized, that may happen, right? That flipping through of episodic memories may happen, and then they turn into flashbacks, right? And then you have these thoughts of the trauma that has happened to you. And so, you can really get stuck with episodic memory. We're going to be continuing to talk about this, guys. And on Friday, I'm going to be coming back and I'm going to complete this because there's a psychogenic edge, for lack of a better word, to this topic. And I want to point that out because I think this is going to be helpful to you guys. I hope it will be. I think it will be. So thank you so much for being with me today, guys. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if this video was informative and helpful for you. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us. And I will see you on Friday to wrap up this topic on memory. I'll see you then. Bye.